This is, I think, the big question what we think about with Dallas, and so I want to start with this. Did they get closer to building a more ideal Luka Doncic centric team for the 2023-24 season? Are they closer to the ideal version of that now?
I think I've lost track of what the ideal version of that is a little bit, and that's part of what makes this so interesting. Like I was very, I want to say surprised. I don't know if I was surprised, but just last year, the way that his game continued to go in the wrong direction, in my opinion. You know what I mean? I think that he has slowed things down. They were 30th in transition offense this year. They ran 3% of the time, 3% less when Luka Doncic was on the court. Like, we'll get into some of that stuff. That is not a great trend for him. And like even down to JaVale McGee, who they signed as in, it felt like a pretty solid, like ideal role man for Luka, which has been a key ingredient when he was coming up as a prospect and early on in his career, and then just didn't play JaVale McGee. And obviously it's hard to separate the Jason Kidd aspect of all of that. So it's going to be an adjustment for Luka. He has more scoring between Kyrie. Seth Curry actually also got signed, who I don't think made our list here to the biannual exception.
Oh, yeah.
And Jaden Hardy, who came along toward the end of last season and is a G League Ignite prospect they got in the second round of last year's draft, who I think is pretty good and probably will be playing more. So, like, there's a world in which his usage can go down and he can start to settle into more of a typical early career Real Madrid type of Luka role. The question is, does he want that? Is the rest of the team good enough to convince him to take his hands off the wheel a little bit? And did they balance it enough defensively to make all of that worth it? So I guess my answer is I think that when they didn't get a center on draft night, Chris, like we knew they wanted DeAndre Ayton. There's been some other names that have come up. I think Clint Capella with that 10th overall pick was a hot kind of rumor around draft time. Once they didn't get that, maybe they still will, but for now, I do kind of like this team as a little bit more switchable, which I think is probably one of the better ways to defend with Luka on your team by adding Grant Williams, keeping Maxi Kleber, etc. And again, with that offensive balance that they should have both in the starting lineup and the bench, he shouldn't have to do as much. But I guess I'll pass it back to you by asking, like, how much, we don't know this, but do you anticipate that will happen? Or do you think Luka is one of these guys like a James Harden or whoever else, LeBron even, who that's just what they want to do? And you can get them whatever you want around them, but that's just what that's how they're going to play. Do you think Luka is in that group, or do you think there's still a chance at like saving him, so to speak?
I mean, there's nothing in his track record and how he's played since he's come into the league that suggests that he wants to be anything different than what he is. He wants to be on the ball superstar Luka Doncic. I also understand that, right? Like, he's been incredibly successful. He is one of the most singular talents we have in the league, and he still does like a pretty good job of getting other guys involved and empowering them to some degree by the shots he creates for them, and he's been a magician. And it's like, I understand to a certain extent how you turn an offense over to him. I think in 10 years ago, I think we've even talked about this. This is a guy that I think could have led his team do something deeper than he has if the level of talent is there. But I think that style of play isn't super perfect and a super great fit for the version of the NBA we're in. And secondly, I do a full year of Kyrie with him from a basketball sense is going to just maybe organically push him out of that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, they had the best half-court offense in the NBA last year, 30th in transition offense. Like, that doesn't even feel possible. And they also don't offensive rebound because they play super small. Maybe that changes if they do pull off a trade for a center, which, again, I want to talk about. I don't think Lively is going to be somebody we should peg as a difference maker in year one. Raw rookie bigs rarely are. And we know, Powell was already there last year. JaVale was already there last year. Maybe it's Rashawn Holmes on the offensive end to help a little bit, but I don't think he's playable at the highest levels in the playoffs and everything else. So they're not getting easy points to your point. And so I think there is a case to be made. Like, I was kind of going hard on one side of it, but like there is a case to be made that they don't need to change, right? But like Luka having a 36+% usage rate and a 40+ assist rate, that's just going to be what their team is, and it probably is that. But I guess I just wonder how they can continue to evolve, because one, that makes him a worse defender, and I actually think he has the potential to be a pretty good defender. And two, they just added Kyrie Irving, and all that he is a shot creator offensively. So you probably do want to cut off a little bit of the diet of what Luka's been doing into Kyrie's plate. You know what I mean? So I guess I don't think they ever figured anything else out last year more than just sort of your turn, my turn. We broke down a couple of their games in detail toward the end of the year. So I know, we were both watching them, and like they scored a lot, but it wasn't as if they built out this awesome, sexy offense around those two dudes. So can they do that? Is Jason Kidd the guy? I don't really know. And that's kind of where my concern comes, is like, yes, there's a version of this team where Luka can balance himself a little bit more, even if he is always going to have a high usage. But like, what does that actually look like? And do the pieces that they have accomplish that?
So what I would say is to be an optimist about Dallas for a second. I think this roster just does kind of organically make more sense and just like logically fits together better. The puzzle pieces actually kind of click into place to me more than they did last year, more than they have in a couple years with Luka. Like, I think they've gone out and gotten like actual real players for now, but also a little bit for later. And I think the for later part is, I think, kind of worth hitting on a little bit later. But you bring in Grant, who will play as a big for you. Doesn't rebound, really. Like, he's a below-average rebounder for his position every year, except one in terms of rebounding missed shots.
Yeah, they have no rebounding on this team.
It's like it's a real issue, and I wonder if a tweak would be. You remember how like the Thunder went out of their way to kind of say at times like Steven Adams boxes out for Russ so Russ could get rebounds. I wonder if they'll just like try to like do that with Luka and Kyrie. Be like, hey, let the guards get the rebounds and they can go. But both those guys like to play really slow, and I don't think that's always the best thing either. So that's a whole other thing we'll need to see how it develops when the basketball happens. But you get Grant. You still have Tim Hardaway's junior contract to do something with if you want to. You have a good amount of wings. You're a bigger Josh Green fan than anybody that I know, but they didn't have to give him up or anything like that in these trades. Like, this roster makes sense now. Like, it just does. And Thibault would have been another really nice piece for them. I'm curious to see.
Yeah, let's talk about the Thibault part, because I was less sold on that. I guess I understand, like, when you're talking about perimeter defense, it's sort of like 99.8% of the league, and then Thibault. You know what I mean? So I get that it's not just like what's the difference between him and X. Like, I'm aware of what the difference is, but I guess like if you're saying there's 25 minutes per game for a guy like that, why would you not just play Josh Green, who I think does a lot of the same things, even though he is smaller and not quite as intense of a defender, because he can be a ball mover and shooter on offense in a way that Thibault's just not going to. Like, I just looked at their rotation and their roster, to your point, especially after getting Omax, and that move felt a little bit to me like we don't have anything else to use our mid-level exception on, but we don't want to go into the season not utilizing every possible resource, so this guy can do something we sort of need. Let's just try it. And maybe they already knew Portland would match because they threw a bunch of junk in there. I don't know if you saw that, Chris, like the early advances, a lot of the stuff that Austin Reeves got and Thibault has on this deal too. That feels like one where we knew they were going to match, but we just wanted it anyway. And that makes me wonder if they even thought Thibault was that great of a fit on their team, considering they were only going to pay him like $8 million anyway.
Look, maybe not, but why I liked it in theory. Also, we did forget to say that Dallas did sign Dante Exum, who actually has been playing really well overseas and is now back. And I'm kind of happy for him that he's getting another chance, so that makes me a little bit happy. But the reason I kind of was bullish on the Thibault thing is that unless Luka's a different defender than we've seen, and unless Kyrie just suddenly like becomes a different player, which is not going to happen. You're just going to have you have Seth Curry, who's like another weak spot in defense. You just needed guys that could hold up on the perimeter for you and do stuff. And even if they were imperfect fits, I understand the bet on the uber talent you have offensively to figure that out just enough to make the defensive stuff work. Tybalt is a specialist, like he just is. But I kind of understood, even if the price was maybe a little high for that, you might be able to play him in the playoffs. That to me is an understandable bet of just saying we need guys to cover defensively and be big and handle some of the stuff for Kyrie and for Luka and gives us the ability to maybe have some cover for these guys and for Seth Curry if you want to deploy him as a shooter.
So my thing is, I just don't think I don't think Thibault is like a person that you put in your defense if you're planning on switching a lot. And I do think they're planning on switching. And so that's kind of where it was a little bit of a head scratcher. I don't think Josh Green really is either. So, that's part of where you start to run into some issues. So let's get to this question because I think it speaks to some of what we're already talking about. What's their best five-man unit? Opening night, who's closing game one for Dallas?
Luka, Kyrie, Josh Green, Grant Williams, and I want to maybe just say Maxi Kleba. Mm-hmm. Which
I think so too.
But there's clearly weaknesses in that, right? Like that's a very light rebounding lineup. It's funny that they added multiple centers, both when they brought back and when they traded for, when they drafted, and it still feels like they're looking for like an answered center, which we're gonna talk about. But Kleba gives you the ability to switch. He can handle some of that. If he's healthy, obviously a bit of concern for him of late, but he can be big and can switch. Grant can switch. They all kind of fit around. Like those guys will all play really well around what Luka does. So like that to me would be the five.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, if that's your main five, I think what you're counting on is basically can we run a little bit more? Can we juice our transition offense and basically just it's not even that crazy of a proposition for them. Can we be the best offense in the NBA? And that helps. Obviously, you're limiting transition opportunities, all the things that, the same reason Sacramento wasn't 30th on defense, even if their talent was a little ugly, right? Like we know how that stuff can work. So I think that's the thing. And like we can talk about centers, but I don't love that if kind of all of this flowed outward from we need Kyrie and we're a little bit desperate because we're starting to wonder about Luka. If the end result of kind of all those moves is still, we are basically the same type of team as we already were, but maybe just a better version of that. Like, maybe that's good enough, but it still sort of feels like they're building, and that's fine. And so I guess let's just have that conversation. Do you feel like they still need to make a trade for a center between now and, let's say, the deadline? Like, is it that urgent where it needs to happen by this year's postseason, or do you think they can cobble together with the guys they have and playing small and all this different kind of stuff a good enough team to be a little bit more patient, and maybe it's lively in year two, or maybe they do kind of find some better stuff next summer rather than trying to rush it now or whatever their other possibilities would be?
So I think they are signaling to us that they want to try to be a little bit patient and develop and build something a little more sustainable for Luka. Is what I think part of this offseason is telling us, Brendon. Because not only do you have Josh Green, who's 22 years old, he's very young. You have Jaden Hardy, who showed some flashes last year, is playing Summer League. He's 21. So you have two really young guys there. You have Derek Lively, who's 19. And you have Omax, who's 21. So a little bit of an older rookie, but nonetheless a rookie. You have four guys there on your 15-man roster that skew younger, that skew not at their best right now. Theoretically, those are things you cash in for someone, right?
Yeah, sure.
I also don't think we know like who the next star to pop free is going to be necessarily. And I also think like if you're picking your fit between to play with Luka, then that's like also like I think it's like we're kind of guessing in real time like what's the perfect fit with Luka, and it might depend on how Luka wants to play and whatnot, right? But I think with the young guys they have, and then taking a 19-year-old center with their top pick, and taking a win, and taking getting another first round pick, and having Josh Green, and having Jaden Hardy, like this is a team that is skewing towards development a little bit, and I like that plan. I think the key for them, if they want to like be competitive with Luka for a longer time, Luka's 24. I think we kind of forget that he's only 24 sometimes because he's already that good. But I think they're telling us, hey, we need to understand that we need to build something that isn't just going to satisfy Luka right now, but 3 years from now. I think that's kind of what we're seeing with this roster development a little bit. Kyrie is like the win now thing. Everything in Seth Curry is a win now thing. Rashawn Holmes is a win now thing. Lively and everything else is very much let's get some pans on the stove that are going to cook for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'm not sure Seth Curry will play, if I'm being honest.
Well, but if they're gonna if he's like a change of pace like shooter in certain games, or like Kyrie misses time, I don't hate it.
That's exactly the part of it, and it's not even a getting down the rabbit hole of Kyrie stuff. It's just he's in his 30s and gets hurt. So I think that's totally reasonable. There's a lot worse ways. He has the familiarity with the organization. That's fine. I just think the way I'm looking at their roster right now, it's kind of down between like who plays between Seth Curry, Omax, and Hardy. I think that's going to kind of be like night to night, week to week, month to month. Let me ask you this. So they still have the Tim Hardaway Jr. contract, which is just really not good, but it does descend. So it actually is 17.9 this year after it was almost 20 last year, and then it goes down next season in the final year to 16.2. They have Maxi Kleber's salary. They still have Rashawn Holmes' salary. So they also have the tools to make a trade right now. If they feel differently about this center thing, because there's still like Pascal Siakam rumors out there across the NBA, and you never know what comes loose after.
They sold JaVale McGee too, by the way.
Yes, exactly. So smaller salary, but they can trade him. So, and like we never know what's going to happen after the Dame and Harden trades. Like there was some Zubats might get traded stuff around free agency. It's like maybe the Clippers aren't done moving. Anyway,
so I'm just laughing real quick because I wanted to see what JaVale was making. Do you realize the last year of his deal is a player option for $6 million?
Yeah, that and the Marvin Bagley deals were like the people who signed those in the front offices should be tested for mental illnesses. Like it's a question mark.
Congratulations, JaVale McGee. You're this week's winner of You Got That Bag. Congratulations to you.
Well, he's last July's winner of You Got That Bag. But
yeah,
yes,
but when you're going to be 37 years old and can only play like 20 minutes a game and you have a player option for $6 million, feel pretty good about that.
Yeah. So, point is,
sorry.
No, you're good. Do they trade? So their offer on draft night was, I believe, Hardaway Jr., JaVale, and Rashawn Holmes for DeAndre Ayton. That the Suns said no to, which they should have. That's an awful offer. Would you maybe do Josh Green in the JaVale McGee slot? They have to pay Josh Green. He's extension eligible right now. They have to pay him next year in restricted free agency. We just talked about they have a little bit of a jam on the wing now with Hardy and Omax and everybody else, Grant. So would you switch that out if it meant getting DeAndre Ayton?
No, I would not want. I don't think that's the player. I'd be looking at Siakam.
Okay.
I would be. Zach Lowe was talking to John Hollinger on his pod this week, and it made me think that like there's a better chance than I thought of for a Siakam trade. And I understand Siakam. There's like the whole thing that Siakam, like there was reported that he's not going to sign with another team, and that complicates the value. And it wouldn't be surprised based on what we know if Toronto's like value proposition for one of these for Siakam is like absurdly high, even if he has 1 year on his deal.
Yeah.
I would really be being like, okay, like what can we get, and what is like the way we can finagle this without giving up too much of our future stuff,
Yep.
but can we do like 2 picks and like matching salary? And is that enough? Do we need to give like Omax in there or Lively in there to complete it? I know that they're hard capped now, so you have to consider that as well. But like, can you go get Siakam? Would be the one that I would be like, can I get that? Because thinking about him as a small ball 5, as your starting 4, he will increase your tempo a little bit. That guy loves to get rebounds and go. He's a good screener. You can have him do a lot of the defensive wing stuff you're going to need to navigate the West next year. If you're going to play the Lakers, you're going to play the Clippers if they're healthy. If you're going to play the Suns, like, you kind of need that guy. And I think, the 3-point shooting, that it would be a different role for him than what we've seen in Toronto, but that would be the talent bet I would make. And if you roll in with a big 3 of Siakam, Luka, Kyrie, and you can keep enough, if you can get this deal done and thread the needle of trading away some of the guys you don't super love, but keeping the ones you think can help you, then I'm all for it. I don't know what Toronto would want necessarily, but my first offer would be something that they'd probably say no to, which is like, okay, like, we're not offering you Josh Green, we're not offering you Derek Lively. Like, I would try to finagle that in a way that lets me kind of keep some of these other things dry. I don't know how realistic that would be, though.
I think that's it's not a perfect fit. It's a great fit, and it's probably the best that they're going to be able to do. I think it kind of keeps this identity of their team intact in a way that, I do think that there are just certain realities, like any superstar, like that you have to confront with Luka. You're not going to want him, as far as what we've seen, like, guarding high-level players. You probably want to switch. You need guys who can do things with the ball but don't need the ball. And so I think Siakam makes a lot of sense.